You are watching an MLGA Network live broadcast. The only people for me are the mad ones.
The world is filled with the boring and the barely conscious.
And misery loves company.
But we don't have to live this way.
Jessica and I are here to talk to those the system rejects, to radicals and thought criminals.
The ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but push the boundaries of acceptable discourse.
Those who stare reality in the face and dare it to be different.
History isn't made by the timid, and fun is not had by the perpetually afraid.
We are the mad ones.
So let's get to it.
Welcome to this very special episode of The Mad Ones. I'm your rebel-ass yee deep south host, Cam Harless, and with me as always is the unfettered hater of the state and trad ho unionizer, Miss Jessica Green. How you doing, Jessica?
Hi, I'm doing wonderful. I'm very excited.
I'm excited too, because joining us tonight, and you know this, I'm not surprising you here, but joining us tonight is a man that really should be a household name. He's one of the few PhDs to exit academia and the Ivy League to become a force for freedom rather than a trainer of the cathedral shock troops. He's a man who's unafraid to set the record straight about hookers, talk to those polite society calls bad people. He's a creator of an online university for renegades and scalawags. I'd like to welcome one of our very favorite thought criminals, Mr. Thaddeus Russell. How you doing, man?
Oh my God, what an introduction. I don't think I've ever had as good an introduction as that, Cam. Dude, I'm moved, I'm touched. Honestly, I'm a bit speechless now. That was really cool. You think I should be a household name, bro?
Dude,
Absolutely.
I think I almost wrote this into the introduction, but I feel like people need to take a renegade history of the United States and put it into the bathroom so that when their guests go to the restroom, they have their ideas challenged on the toilet. That's what I think.
Yeah, I'm all for the toilet strategy. Yeah,
They'll have a place to shit their pants, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a perfect place to read my book because my book is about shit, essentially. You know, right? People who were considered human shit, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But actually gave us the freedoms. You know, like being able to shit on a toilet in private with plumbing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a
They
weird
don't
tangent.
they don't do that in India. It's very
What?
It's getting better.
It's getting
do they
better, but there aren't a lot
What
of
do they-
toilets in India. A couple of years ago,
Oh,
when
God, damn.
one of the guys was running for president, that was one of his promise. Joe Biden offered $2,000 that he never gave us, and this guy offered toilets. And it's like we're different, I think.
Damn. I'm not for the toiletless society,
Yeah.
stateless
No.
society maybe, but not a toiletless one. That sounds not fun.
Well, every
Yeah.
year there's an international convention about toilets and, just
What?
sanitation in general. And
Really?
it's really fun because everybody comes from all around the world and they bring sort of like their new toilet technology and innovations. There's a lot of bizarre things that go on in the world, and I like to find out what they are. The toilet convention is one of them. But they're working on solving problems like the fact that not most, but a lot of people in India don't have access to plumbing, and that makes like cholera and other types of things an issue
Right.
for them.
Yeah,
right.
But what I wanted to tell you about your book, which I just finished, was that since childhood,
Wow.
I've been interested in the history of commonplace things because I think that they
Okay.
tell us more about who we are than like the king, which king fought which king. That's kind
there
of
you go.
esoteric, but like why a spoon is shaped the way that a spoon is shaped, it kind of tells us a lot more about who we are as like common people. And so I found your book rich with that kind of information. And so that was really exciting for me. I absolutely loved your book. And I need to go through and do like a second listen because there's so much information there. It's like, my eyes are terrible, so I listen to books. And so I need to do a couple of passes, but I have to tell you, it was very special to me, being that my specific interest in history is common. What is common?
This book has been out for 11 years, Jessica. You are the first person to notice that about it. You're the first person to say that.
Wow.
That is that's absolutely, it's one of the things that I like about it, you know, and that I was trying to put forward was that idea. I'm not, by the way, the only historian who's done that. There's a lot of historians who have done that.
Yes.
So you know, it's a part of my book, but in a sense, you know, it's one of the biggest parts and one of the biggest arguments I'm making. Yes, the prosaic, the everyday, like, it's amazing to me how that academics aren't spending like all their time basically watching television, because that's what Americans do, 8 hours a day, I think, on average. So don't you want it? Like, these people are choosing, going out of their way to watch this show or that show, right? Sometimes paying for it, right? For hours a day. Okay, so it's a central part of their life.
Right.
And how is there a better way, other than maybe being their shrink, to understand them than to examine what they choose to do, right? What they choose, what people choose to do with the time, right? 99% of that is uninteresting to political people. Right? Americans are notoriously apolitical. I mean, it seems like we're super political now, but we're really not, right? The reason the discourse has been so charged, in fact, over the last 5 years, is that Americans are political ignoramuses. So they don't know. So it's a superficiality about it, and that leads to hysteria, right? When you just know the top line, whether it's that Obama, the president, is a Muslim terrorist, right? It's both sides, or it's that, you know, Trumpists are domestic terrorists. You're just gonna, that comes from, some of it's obviously willful, you know, attempts to discredit the enemy, but like, I think most of it's genuine. I think most people, you know, who watch MSNBC, like, really believe these people are domestic terrorists, that there's racism everywhere, etc. But that's all, you know, the three of us know that all that shit is bullshit, and that it's, you know, so when you're ignorant, you tend to go to emotional reactions faster, right? If your head is full of information about an issue or a topic, you know, with facts and details and history, right? Really knowing the ideas about an issue, it's usually gonna take you a lot longer to hit your emotional nerves when you hear an argument, a counter to yours, right? So, I mean, like, we were talking about Scott Horton before we started, right? You know, like, does Scott Horton care about war? You know, does he have feelings about it?
A few.
I would imagine, right? But, you know, generally speaking, when he hears some pro-war argument, he doesn't flip out.
Right.
Yeah.
He doesn't like it, but he's not going to flip out and be hysterical about it. So what was the point I was making? There was something that just started. What was that about?
I don't know. But I do think that it's interesting that you're talking about politics in that way, and how we watch 8 hours of television. And I wonder if it's because they are told by the television that this is real, and they just apply those emotions that they have and react to in their TV watching and apply that to the real world.
Yeah, that gets really tricky. So this comes from pop culture studies, which is a thing in the academy, which I was, you know, I'm basically a part of it. I mean, I am a historian of American popular culture in part. It's one of the things I've written about. Obviously, Renegade is full, as Jessica noted, is full of that. So here's the thing. This is about evidence. And I don't know if this is interesting or too in the weeds, but, you know, for historians, for social scientists, many of us, I would say, would counsel caution as to what you can divine from that evidence, right? And what you want to avoid at all costs, and this is something that I just can't stand. Now, a lot of academics never got this memo, and they do it all the time, but trying to make assumptions about what people are thinking or feeling as they're watching Fast and Furious Part 8, whatever, you know, like, so, you know, it really, I wouldn't infer anything about their state of mind, their political ideas, their cultural preference. Oh, sorry, that's the one thing. But there, any ideas that would be significant for, you know, politics or policymakers? No, I can't tell you, but I can tell you that they spent 2 hours and probably some money to watch this thing. Okay. And this thing, then what you do is you analyze it against the standard of the dominant culture. So what does the dominant culture think of Fast and Furious Part 8? And then if you find out that there's some taboo against Fast and Furious Part 8, or that it is despised by one section of the society, that's a powerful section of society, well, then watching it constitutes a minor but truly everyday form of rebellion, resistance. You know, obviously we're not talking about, like, you know, the South African ANC like taking up guns against the apartheid regime or anything like that level. Sure. But it's actually, this is actually where real and this is, Jessica, where kind of, I think, where you started. To me, that's where the most profound revolutions happen. Is in everyday life. The thing that you're interested in, Jessica, the stuff that looks trivial, right, to everyone, especially academics, right? You change the way you get out of bed and eat breakfast and go to work, and, you know, and watch TV and listen to podcasts, and you change all that. What's left to change? You know, I mean, that's a revolution. Right. And so we've had many, the beautiful thing about our society in particular, meaning American society, in my view, is that we've had more of those revolutions than maybe any other country, right?
Yeah.
In terms of day-to-day patterns, and this is partly just from being a rich country, you know, rich people can do this more easily, but yeah, the nice thing about America for me is that it's not terribly traditionalist. You know, in fact, it really isn't. I mean, for instance, the fact that Christianity is, how Christianity is looked down upon, you know, by the people who publish the newspapers and produce the cable news shows, right? It's weird and corny and actually like embarrassing a little bit to hear someone on television talking about their faith.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, that's my feeling. I'm like, ooh, even if I don't want to feel that, which I don't, like, I want people to think whatever they want, but I'm always like, ooh, your faith? Ooh, God, you are from another class of human being. That's beneath me and my friends.
Sure.
So, well, not to mention every time they do it, it's so poorly done that it's incredible. It's like, because I'm a Christian man, and so like I watch some of these things, and I see them display Christianity in such a way, and I'm like, maybe there's some like shallow, poor examples of Christians that act this way, but my entire life, no one has talked about it like this awkwardly and dumbly. At least not in the place where they're talking to people they know. You know, like there's some stumbling around people you don't know, but it's like you hear these people talking to people they love, and I don't know, none of it strikes as true. And so I think that's also interesting.
But this is sort of evidence. Can Jessica hear us?
Yeah. Can you guys hear yourselves in a feedback, by the way?
Only slightly.
Okay, I'll turn it down. I'm sorry. I can't connect with my headphones right now. I'm so sorry, guys. Please continue.
It's okay. But think about a place like Indonesia or Saudi Arabia or Pakistan having an attitude toward Islam like we have an attitude toward Christianity. Now, Christians are not being lynched in the streets, you know, don't get me wrong about this, but we have certainly kind of turned our back in a way right? And certainly within the dominant culture. I mean, that's why there's Christian rock. Like they had to make their own rock. It's not really a lot
Some
of
of it's
Christian rock
good.
because they've had to make their own fucking rock and roll music. I mean, because they're Christians. Okay, imagine if that were the case for Muslims in a place like Pakistan, right?
Yeah.
So my big point that I was making, and I'm glad I finally circled back to this, is this is evidence of non-traditionalism in the United States, in American culture. And I think that's actually, this is not a diss on Christianity, it says nothing, but I think that's generally a really good thing, right? I mean, if you have a small L libertarian bone in your body, you're gonna at least have some tension with traditionalism.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's a lot of libertarians who are also consider themselves to be also conservative and also traditionalists.
Yeah.
To some extent, but you can't, that doesn't, it's it's not okay. I mean, you can't really, I don't think you can justify that as your politics. It doesn't make any sense. You can't, I just don't think you can be both at once.
So just a question about that. Do you think that a person can inhabit those things in their life, but not inhabit them in their politics? Like I do have like more traditional values than maybe comparative to some, but I don't wish to enforce it on anyone. Like I don't think that sex work is a good idea, but I wouldn't want to make it illegal for many of the reasons that you stated in your book, and also, you know, that it can be quite dangerous for the people who participate in it. But I also don't, you know, think that it's a good thing either. So like two things maybe being true at the same time.
How is it not good?
Well, like I said, maybe the more dangerous aspects of it. Like I'm glad that it's available to women who need to avail themselves of it, and I wouldn't take that away from them. But I wouldn't want my own daughter to have to avail herself of it. For example,
because of the physical danger involved.
Because I do see danger involved, because there's, you know, like violence and all sorts of things that kind of accompany that, and I think that is increased, of course, by the state's involvement in it.
No, it's created by it. It's created entirely by it. It would be one. It would be one of this. It was the safest occupation in the United States before the state cracked down on it. So my whole chapter 4, right, which is about this, shows how until the late 19th century, prostitution laws were essentially unenforced in much of the country. You know, so the business pretty much operated as if it were an above ground business. And during that time, I show very well in the book, right? And I'm like one of 20 historians who've done this work, by the way, that those women who worked in that business were the best paid, the wealthiest, had health care provided for them, had security, right? They would hire ex-cops to be their security guards. And raping a prostitute in a 19th century brothel will get you killed. And so it didn't happen. I mean, it happened. I mean, it happened as often as it happened in a normal house, but probably less, actually. I bet there was less murder in brothels than in a house. It was only when they started cracking down, and what they did was, once you make it truly illegal, what can you not have? You can't have a brothel anymore. Right. The existence of thousands of brothels across the United States for a century or more is evidence that it was not enforced. As soon as they started enforcing it, they shut down the brothels, of course. So there goes your security. Boom, you're done, right?
Sure.
And then if you want to have security of any kind, who do you have to call? You have to call these guys named pimps, who overwhelmingly are piece of shit criminals with violent tendencies, right? The pimp didn't exist. All the brothels were owned by madams before they cracked down, women who were former sex workers themselves. So the reason, just like with a drug war, right? There's 100% of the violence associated with drugs is because of the law against drugs. Yeah. Because once you create a black market, right, the only people who will enter that market are bad people.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, but do we also say that there, just because you could remove those dangers, that there would be no negatives associated with drug use or negatives associated with prostitution, which would certainly be the case. There'd be health effects in both cases. You could get venereal disease or whatever. So like, I mean, I don't maybe don't think that not preferring it as a career for someone that I care about means, of course, that I would want the state to do any of these things. Is what I'm saying.
Prostitutes are way less likely to get STDs. Why, do you think?
I would venture maybe because they get tested more often or use safe sex procedures.
No, because they're professionals, right?
Right. Okay.
They're protecting not just their body, they're protecting their business. So,
sure.
And also because the sex act is a purely business act for them.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like moment of drunken passion where you're just like, oh, forget the condom, which is what people who give it away for free do.
Fair.
That's exactly what happens in most non-commercial sexual transactions.
Okay.
Right? That's super common, in fact, right? Where you get real lax with the birth control. Why? Because you're about to have sex and, things get elevated and you stop thinking so rationally. This is well known. This is super common, right? Yeah. But if you're a professional who doesn't give a shit about having a relationship with the person afterward, right? And you're not there for the sex, you're there for the money, you're going to be real careful. So prostitutes get STDs way less often.
Do you think that the view of, and I'm sorry, I'm just kind of going to flow here. I'm not, just for clarity, not necessarily for pushback.
I love it.
Do you think that the idea that there are like the stigmas attached to sex via like the immorality of them, they come from like older places? Like for example, we get a lot of ideas from the Bible about like women who are not chaste in their marriage and holding on to their virginity for their husbands and things like that. And Cam, if I'm misquoting the Bible, please correct me. But so I think that those stories and those narratives were developed out of like practical things that came through our survival. And like we had to survive in these groups, and we had to like have. I know you're not the biggest fan of Jordan Peterson, but he talks about how like you have to develop these ways of existing in a group so you don't kill each other. And so like daughter protection and things like that do have a purpose in the sense that they do kind of keep us from competing for women and things like that. So not to say that these things should be enforced by a state. I'm never saying that. But the idea that they come from a place that is of a practical nature and not like a social construct kind of thing.
Yeah. So first of all, I love talking to people with conservative ideas. Because as you guys probably know, like I was raised, this is amazing. This is totally true. Not an exaggeration. I swear to God. I was born and raised in Berkeley in the 1960s and 70s and 80s. Right. So if you know anything about Berkeley, okay, it was, so this is not a joke either.
Socialists.
Dude, no, more than that. Okay. The entire time I lived here as a child and a young adult, from the age of 0 to 21, I was basically living here, 22. The entire time, the Berkeley City Council and the mayor were dominated by the Communist Party of the United States of America, CPU. The mayor and a majority, his name was Gus Newport, you can look it up. The mayor and the majority of the Berkeley City Council, my entire time living here, was CPUSA members. I did not meet a Republican until I was 20 years old.
Huh?
Wow.
Yeah.
I grew up in a sea of them, so that's a bizarre way to grow up for me.
I get this. I did not know a single practicing Christian, like ever, like among like, except like my Mormon relatives who I never talked to, but like people in my life, there was no one in my life who went to church. No one. No.
Wow.
Till what age?
Still, that's true. I mean, really never. I mean, I guess I've known people who have, but I can't even think of anybody who's gone to church. I mean, even now, like my whole life.
Here's a fun thing that you don't know right now,
Yeah,
but do you see this
yeah.
this stupid expensive piece of paper right here
No.
behind me? Oh, there's a stupid
No.
expensive piece of paper that I own.
Okay.
Biblical
It's got a
studies
frame.
degree.
It's got a seal.
So that was
biblical,
like my thing. Yeah.
Wait, say it again. What was it?
Biblical studies. That's what my
Degree?
bachelor's is in. Yep.
Oh, where'd you go to school?
Well, I went to a couple of them. This one I ended up on finishing up online because I didn't realize it was a mistake to go to college and get all that debt until 3 years in. And so I finished up online at some place in Arkansas. I just wanted to finally pay. I paid enough for the piece of
Sounds
paper.
prestigious.
Let me put it on my wall. Well, that's the thing. It's not important to me because everything that I've learned outside of college has been far better, far more important, and far deeper than anything I learned in college.
Oh God!
And so it's like,
it's
like people are like, oh well, you have this degree, you can use that as credential, and I'm like, I never do, because that doesn't mean shit to me. Yeah. What means to me is the fact that I sat down and was like, I want to figure this out. I want to understand this a little bit better. And it's just so crazy because like I thought for sure, like, so I actually never went to a public school in my life. I went to a private Christian school and I ended up homeschooling from like 8th grade on. And so people, when they talk about how there's propaganda and all of that in the public school system, I'm like, yeah, no, it's in the private school system too, because I got all the same stuff that I had to deprogram from afterwards. And so it's like, yeah, it's better, sort of. I still had to sit and read.
This is further evidence of Andrew Breitbart's dictum, brilliant dictum, which I guess I believed before he articulated it, but he said it really well and very simply, which is that law is downstream from culture, right?
Yeah,
I believe that.
So why is it that private school curricula look exactly the same as public school curricula, right? Because the dominant culture says that we should be teaching that shit, right? The dominant culture believe, whatever's being taught in the schools, in the public schools, that, hello, we do have a democracy. Yes, we really do. And especially for school boards, right? And state legislatures, that's who establishes the curriculum, especially in a small state. Yeah, you really choose those assholes up there who do that stuff, right? And they're actually quite accountable to you. It's not voting for president, this is pretty direct. It's relatively direct democracy in this country. So the culture is going to demand that curriculum, whether they're paying for their education or not, right? And it's a damn shame, but that's the way it goes. So, I mean, now also the other thing it tells us about the culture is that people, and this is seen literally on the faces of people every day now, is that very unfortunately, the vast majority of Americans, it appears from all these cases, basically believe what the government says.
Yeah.
Basically.
Sad to realize that. Yeah, but it's true.
They assume that the government is essentially, fundamentally on our side. Think about that. But that's true, right? Now, it doesn't mean they don't criticize it. It doesn't mean that they won't go on and on crying about the Vietnam War or things, or the Iraq War, But you can just see that this lockdown and mask thing, and then private schools taking their cue from public schools, right? That's saying, that's basically ceding authority to the state.
Especially a Christian private school. And that's like, so you were talking about how like the traditionalism kind of is at odds with libertarianism.
This is why one of those things.
Oh no, sorry. No, I was just going to say, no, that's one of the things that I don't disagree with, because like I can tell you I'm an anarchist all day, and for everyone around me, for everyone I talk to, that's absolutely true. But if I'm talking to someone who is a Christian or who knows a little bit more, dude, I'm a monarchist. I just reject this thing. I was talking to someone years ago, and they were like, "Oh, well, if anarcho-capitalist isn't good for you, what would you use?" And I was like, "I'd have to make up a term. Here we go. Patient monarchist."
Are you a Yarvanite?
Well, I'm a Malice. I'm an anarcho-Malician. I'm a big fan of Michael Malice, and so by way of osmosis, in a sense, but not. I mean, monarchism insofar as Jesus is king, not some asshole here.
Oh, then you're not a Yarvanite.
No,
I see. Okay, I gotcha. So you're a theocrat.
No, well, sort of,
No?
but it's a monarchism. But I do theocracy is very like Pakistan is a theocracy. It's like men doing the will of God, men leading for God.
Well,
my thing is they're all assholes. I just literally reject humanity in that role.
I see. Okay,
so
all earthly rulers, you reject all earthly rulers, right?
Fuck
all the Caesars.
Yes. Yeah.
But Cam, what did Jesus say about Caesar?
He said, "Don't get your ass killed by not paying your taxes. We have more important shit to do."
And you really think that's what he meant?
I absolutely think that's what he meant.
Render unto Caesar really that was just practical, because Jesus was a super practical thinking guy.
He was holding a coin at the moment. That's more than Caesar.
You want to go into so he did ask for a coin, and he asked the Pharisees, whose picture's on this coin? Yeah. And they said Caesar, and he said, "Well, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's." I think that if you look at the mythos, the overarching meta narrative of the Bible, and you look into Genesis, it talks about how we were made to be imagers or created in the image of God. And so I think when Jesus was talking, he was talking into this, he was showing you a graven image, and he said, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's." That had Caesar's face on it. But what do I have in my possession that bears the image of God? Me.
Okay.
So
until we make a coin with you on it, it's going to be
Cam coins.
It's going to be a crypto coin, of course.
Yeah.
It is. Those NFTs are going to be tight.
Right.
But no, that's I do think that when it came, because there were several times within the Gospels where Jesus was like, "Hey, don't tell people who I am yet, because I have to live in this world, and I have to get to the point where I am going to do what I'm going to do." And so the idea that he would use the concept of the coin and taxation and giving unto Caesar what is Caesar's as a concession to say there's more important stuff for us to do, I think is very plausible within that.
All right. Here's the great thing. Go ahead, please.
Well, I was going to say, I think there's also a parable where he talks about the wheat and the tares, and should we pull up the tares out of the wheat? And he says, no, you don't want to disturb the roots where the wheat is growing. And if you pull the tares out of the wheat, you will disturb the roots. And so you must let the tares grow up with the wheat. And I think that also, go ahead.
He's a paleo. he was a paleocon.
A paleocon.
Right? That's classical conservatism right there. Right.
The don't tear down a fence when you don't know why it's there.
I always thought that was more in reference to people, like individuals that, were
same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. So the egalitarian comes in with his big sickle, and he just cuts off the tops of everybody to make them equal.
Right.
Right. So
but isn't this in reference to pulling out things by the root and how it will disturb the roots of the other plants around it?
Which book is this in? I don't know what you're referring to.
So it's in Matthew, and I've only read a few books.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I used to teach Matthew.
Okay, so I know it's in Matthew only because I've only read 3 books of the Bible, and Matthew was the one I paid the most attention to.
Yeah, Matthew's great because at the end of it is the beginning of imperialism, Cam. So the whole idea of imperialism was invented right there and then.
Man, I blame
Because
Constantine this whole time.
what's it called? It's called the Great Commission. You know about this in the Bible?
Go out into all the world and preach the gospel to all nations.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, that's the origin of it. Evangelicalism, which immediately, well, it is imperialism in itself, right? So don't most biblical scholars regard that as a call to evangelize? I mean,
it's a call to evangelize for sure.
Yeah, and to assimilate people into the Christian project. So it's straight up imperialism. Like it's the pure good uncut shit right there. That's the origin of it. Don't you think?
It maybe in the sense of the way that it's the way that a person would evangelize, because there are like physical types of evangelism, and then there's like just living your life, and then people go, hey, why are you like, what's going on with you that makes things good for you, and then you can share that with them, which is not the same thing as like empirically, like, or that's not the right word, being an imperialist and going out and conquering other people's souls. Like you can attract them by your light as well.
Yeah, but you don't need to evangelize to do that. You can just live a life that is so enviable that other people will emulate it.
Is that not in it of itself a type of evangelism? You are expressing yourself still by your act of not trying to force people into your ways and things of that nature.
No, there's nothing. If your intentions are pure of that, then you're just living a godly life. There's nothing imperialist or evangelical about that. Of course that's fine. It's actively going out. So here's the thing, though. There is an imperialist assumption in it, though, which is that your life is better than their life, than the other person's life, and and it gets worse. You know what they need in their life, but they don't. So that is the idea in the head of every imperialist in human history. Right? When I say imperialist, I don't mean just conquering and pillaging. I'm talking about people who go and transform, like Caesar. I mean, Caesar was the first great imperialist after the Bible was written, at the time of the Bible. So, I mean, in history, he was and it's not coincidental that it was all at the same time, right? He didn't do it on a Christian mission, but his idea was to transform all of Europe into what's now called Europe into Rome.
Yeah.
So the Caesar tradition is what's what I meant. All the great imperialists followed the Bible after that, because that idea of it being beneficial, being a benefactor to others, right? That's what I mean by imperialism. The belief that you can raise people up and should raise people up to live the way that you do. That's the seed of imperialism that's in the heart of Teddy Roosevelt. It's in the heart of Joseph Stalin. It's in the heart of Woodrow Wilson. I mean, this is what they themselves said, right? Caesar said this.
And the social
but
gospel.
all of it. All the British imperialists, they all believed, what's his face, the big one who colonized South Africa. I'm forgetting. Oh, Cecil Rhodes. Cecil Rhodes was like the big one. He really took this Christian idea and made it political. You know, he was all about, the British Empire was all about helping the people of India and South Africa. All about that, right?
Yeah.
And Rhodesia. It was about making them live better lives, which was about making them live like Englishmen.
Yeah.
You know, the English way of life, we know that's superior to the way that people anywhere else live, but certainly in Africa. And so the closer they are, it's utterly narcissistic. You get that, right?
If I may, is it narcissistic to feel that it is better to have toilets and not have water with cholera in it? Now, toilets are an invention of the West, but to want to bring them to India, is that imperialism necessarily, or is it just like wanting people to have clean water?
Not if they're asking for it. Sure. Okay. No, of course not. No, if the people of India say, hey, we would like some toilets. No, giving them toilets, there's nothing imperialist about that. Not at all.
So in just from my personal experience, as far as like Christianity goes, like I wouldn't offer it to anybody who wasn't asking for it. And I don't know that all Christians, I definitely know that all Christians don't agree with me and feel they need to even go to people's doors knocking to see if they can, sell you Christianity. I'm not of that vein. But I do think there is a kind of evangelism in an example, and so if, hey, you see my toilets work and you want some toilets, I have toilets to offer you. And, that can be, I guess, a colonization. Like, okay, so let me rewind a little bit if I can.
The gospel according to toilets.
The Vikings. The Vikings were superior in might to the Angles. The Danes were superior to the Angles in might and military and, some of their cultural ways, in my opinion. But nevertheless, the Vikings were Christianized. And I think that there's something to say about the things that Christianity does offer to people that would make the Danes and the other peoples surrounding that whole thing kind of like adopt these ways. Like, by all accounts, militarily, they should have conquered. And they did in a lot of ways conquer. And then the Christian culture overtook them still. And they had to have willingly adopted that because they had the military might. They could have forced their way on the people there.
Sure.
So like it seems to me that there is a something in Christianity that lends itself to being adopted, and like there's a positive arc in the world because of the adoption of Christianity throughout the world. It's
a great story.
Right. Exactly. Like even if you just look at it from the narrative aspect, like it benefits people.
Well, I mean, it's a great story in that, as you're saying, many and probably most Christians found in the story something utterly compelling, right? Regardless of what people told them about it, right? I mean, people who are true believers. I'm not talking about the kid who was born into a Catholic family and was dragged to Sunday school. I'm talking about people who are true believers, right?
Right.
And certainly converts, obviously, right? And there's a lot of converts. I mean, voluntary converts.
Right here.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's a so we know that it's a good story and that we know that it's effective. Okay. Right. Now that I know that, I think, okay, what is it about the story that would be attractive or compelling to people who live in, say, the United States of America in 21, right? And then, I can think of some reasons. I can think of reasons why it might be compelling, or has been compelling to people across the world for 2 millennia. What do you think, Jessica? What do you think? What's compelling to you when did you convert, by the way?
So, a little bit about my background.
This is my show now.
I'm sorry?
I said, this is my show now.
Yeah, no, go ahead. If you wish. I actually, it was interesting to me that you referred to me as a conservative. It still strikes me as odd when I hear that because for the longest time, I was a full-on woke SJW leftist warrior for what a lot of people would consider postmodernism.
Now I know why Christianity makes so much sense to you, because it's the exact same moral structure as the left.
So okay. So now I actually that hits because I agree with that. And I think that what fundamentally made me want to be a social justice warrior is my belief in those Judeo-Christian values. And I do think that Christianity, for example, is a women's equality movement, which I know sitting in 2021 sounds insane. But if you were sitting back in the time that the Bible was written, it's like this crazy hippie humanitarian text that the people of the time were like, what are you talking about?
Correct.
So I have understood that perspective and have realized the positive arc that Christianity has put the entire world on. And I think that that's powerful. And I struggle with my relationship with the spiritual, but I ethically and practically am a Christian. I was raised in America. So Judeo-Christian values are sort of programmed into me. So there's even if I called myself an atheist, which I did for a long time, I would have been a sort of Christian atheist in a way.
Okay. So So I want to know what you think Judeo-Christian values are.
Sure. So basically some of the things, and not that I'm like a big fan of like the Puritans or any of the people like that, but traditional family values,
meaning what?
Just like
meaning
the belief
what does that mean?
Like, okay, so like we have the 10 Commandments, right? So it's like respect thy mother and father. There's value in that. You don't covet thy neighbor's wife, don't steal his property, that kind of thing. So those come from like what I think are objective truths. And this is something we could definitely go into a rabbit hole on, and I wish we had forever to talk, because I would. But I think those values exist because they're practical and they helped us survive in the wild, and that's why they became part of that narrative.
Right. Okay. So subsequent history has vindicated it. You're suggesting. Right?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true.
Because Judeo-Christian countries have been so peaceful.
No, absolutely not. No, okay. That's a great point to bring up, because I think if we traveled back in time, and the thing that we would see that would shock us the most is the level of violence that is commonplace. And so today we exist in a lot more peaceful environment than our ancestors ever could have like imagined. And violence is shocking to us because of that reason, but it wasn't to those people. And so, that was kind of the point I was making before about, I don't want to get bogged down in the weeds here, but that was the point I was making before about like practical survival, so we don't kill each other, because it's maybe in our nature to be tribal and violent. And we can overcome that, kind of like malfunction of humanity by placing these values that we have found benefit us through cooperation instead of violence and coercion.
I just want to talk more about these values.
Okay.
So those are some values, that are in there that I read. But there's some other values, and I think there's some values that are bigger than those, that underlie all of Christianity, that are the basis of it. And for me, and this is just me, there's been a few debates about what the Bible really says.
Sure.
Right?
Like, no kidding.
massive, endless debates ever since Luther and Calvin came along. But
bastards.
I think I am not at all unusual in saying that the fundamental value is sacrifice of oneself for God. Yes or no?
I would say it's more sacrifice of oneself for others. God's children. God's community. God's community. Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. But that's serving God, right? God wants us to have a particular community. And so you're doing his work by sacrificing yourself. And I don't mean killing yourself.
Sure.
But so subsequent,
as Rand would talk about it.
So if you read Romans, the Epistle to the Romans by Paul, the Apostle Paul, that's the big one right there. Because in there, he says, let's sacrifice, he uses the word, sacrifice our bodies on the altar to serve God. I mean, it depends on which translation, right? I forget the King James, but everyone agrees that's what he's saying. So asceticism is, everyone agrees, is the core of Christianity, which is the sacrificing of specific things. It's not your life. That would be stupid. It's your individual pleasure and freedom. So they go hard on sex immediately after the Bible. So if you look at Augustine, City of God, incredible book, then one of the top, most famous, important Christian theologians of all time. Yeah. He says straight up, he talks about sex a lot in there, and it's all about that. But many people have interpreted Romans as specifically targeting, because he talks about sacrificing the body. Again, sometimes the members are used, right? Sacrifice your members, right? For God. And obviously, and then wealth, sacrifice your wealth, right? For God. You should not own wealth. That's very clear. He was a socialist. When I read the Bible, which was in college, and I read it cover to cover in a class, I was a socialist then, and I was like, this is my homeboy right here. Jesus is a total socialist, and I loved it. Yeah.
But he doesn't advocate for Rome to come and take your wealth, the wealth from the rich people, and redistribute it. He advocates for the wealthy man to give his wealth away.
Sure.
So I don't know that socialism would describe that as much as like voluntary charity.
They tried socialism in Acts, and it failed.
No,
and that's a big storyline.
You don't need a state for socialism. If everyone in their hearts is a true believing socialist, you don't need any state at all, because everyone will voluntarily get up at 5 a.m. and go to a meeting to plan the stoplights in town, and then they'll go voluntarily to the factory and work in the solar panel factory for 8 hours, and then after that they will voluntarily go study the marine environment if they live along the coast, because they'll have to make policy around waste being dumped into the, you know what I mean? That's socialism, where you work and you manage society. Everyone does all the time, because that's what it requires, right? Imagine managing your society. Imagine truly being the ruler, right? Like, Jessica, you own this shit. Like, you own the United States, truly, like, really. That means you have to like do a lot of meetings. You have to do a lot of work. That's Christian. That's a Christian idea. That's exactly what the Puritans were all about. And they said, and here goes your example idea, by the way, about setting an example rather than forcing it on people.
Sure, yeah.
So the Puritans called it the city upon a hill idea. Mm-hmm. This is John Winthrop on his way over on the boat. He says this allegedly in a speech. We will create a city upon a hill that is so great, I'm paraphrasing now, that all the nations of the world, all the people of the world will look at us and emulate it and create their own cities upon a hill. I mean, talk about like arrogance, but at least he wasn't an imperialist in that way. It's kind of amazing. Later they definitely become imperialists, but not then. So asceticism, the sacrifice of one's own freedom and pleasure in particular, right? It's not cool to be going to the movies if you have God's work to do, right? If the school down the street needs repair, right? And you go to, and we find out that you've been going to the movies all day, you're bad. You're bad. You should be on that all the time, right? So, and sex is only, if it's not for procreation, it is only one thing: self-serving pleasure. Boom. That's it. That's all there's nothing communal about it. It's anti-communal.
If I can ask you, one of the points you made in the beginning of your book that I thought was interesting was you said something about all of the people that I'm about to describe, if they ran our society, it would not be a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, we would definitely, there would be a great deal dirtier than we are now, maybe not have clean water or toilets or anything like that. So wouldn't it stand to reason that, of course, we don't want to go so far into Puritanism that we're burning women for dancing on Sunday, but also that like social shame has a place in kind of keeping us from, sort of our maybe more baser nature. Like, you acknowledge, I would assume, because of that statement you made in your book, that human beings do have some tendencies that are not good for us. That if we give over entirely to those tendencies, now pleasure is not a bad thing. Believe me, I enjoy my cannabis, so I'm not opposed to pleasure. But that if we give over to these things without that balance, that tip of, call it shame, that we would maybe devolve as a people.
Okay. So shame is absolutely effective in general, not always though. And this is actually something Foucault noticed. Shame is, I should say, it has often been effective in getting people to do things, or getting people to not do things, right?
Sure.
In terms of, meaning as a means of coercion, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what shame is.
If you want to just
coercion.
drink all day, your friends and your family have to sort of coerce you out of doing that, or you'll die. Like,
yeah, and shaming is one way to is an act of coercion, right?
The shame of society that you would feel maybe being a drunk probably keeps a lot of people from being drunks. Is, I think maybe like a point in its favor.
Well, that I doubt, but maybe. But so I will grant you that it is often effective, okay, in getting the result we want. But I want you to acknowledge that it's a form of coercion, and then most of all, I want you to think about what the alternative might be. Are there alternative ways of getting people to do things that the three of us would all agree is beneficial to everyone? And to me, I'd much rather have a system of incentives. I'd much rather change behavior through incentives, where they get something good if they do the thing, than have a world awash in bad feelings, which is what shame is.
So to your point,
I don't want bad feelings. I want people feeling happy. Oh, if I do this, I'll make X amount of dollars, or I will have a better relationship with my family. Right? So for me, last thing.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I am a recovering alcoholic. So I've been sober for 8 years. And the reason staying sober has been pretty easy for me and the main reasons I stay sober is I get benefits that are basically pleasurable. Like I look better. Like, I used to be really puffy when I was drinking. And so like, it's like I get a lot of pleasure from looking better, I just have been in much better shape, and I have more time, and there's benefits that are actually pleasurable in not drinking. And that's the reason I'd stop. I don't drink.
Okay.
Well, and I do think that that's an interesting point to make, because if you look at a lot of the research on addiction, be it heroin, alcohol, whatever. My dad's he's not with us anymore, but he was a heroin addict. And I saw how his life was. I saw his life ended early, obviously, because of different things that he chose to do. But one of the things that I've noticed in recent days is when they do these studies, that it isn't the shame or the jail or sometimes it's not even the rock bottom that makes people decide not to be an addict. What changes people from addicts, you're right, it is incentive. But I think the biggest incentive is community and love and having those relationships. Because like they did the rat study where like they put rats in a maze, and they put, I don't know if it was cocaine or heroin or what, in one of the water bottles. And when the rat was alone, that dude was a tweaker. But as soon as they put all of the rats in the same cage with the regular water and the tweaky water, they almost none of them used it. And so addiction, I don't think is treated by shame. I do think it's treated by love. I do think it's treated by incentive. And I think that, of course, there are a lot of arguments when it comes to Christianity and how it presents and how people have used it in the past. But I do think that what led my father to 34 years of complete sobriety from any form of drug was love. And that was the love that came from him finding Jesus and finding my mom. And so, I do think that you make a lot of good points. And I think that, I understand the concept of Christianity as starting imperialism, but I would say Christianity used imperialism, and some really bad dudes. Like St. Augustine probably wrote some good stuff, but he was the one who first tied the church to the state, and him and Constantine. And that's kind of this. I forget his name is Q the Abolitionist. He's another podcaster, and he talked about how Catholicism is really the bastard child of the church and the state. And I was like, oh wow, that's definitely an interesting way to think about it. And
true,
Constantine was a big part of that.
Well, I mean, the church, which then became known as the Catholic Church after the Reformation, was a state in itself, an actual state with an actual army. So Yeah. So
If I can just clarify really quickly, I do acknowledge
yeah.
that shame is a form of coercion. And perhaps addiction is a bad example to use with it, because I agree with you guys that obviously incentives work a lot better than shame does in a lot of cases, and would be preferable in almost every case and every situation. But we can't deny that there are behaviors that get taught to us as children by the disapproval of the community around us. Like we, for example, return the cart. Most of us will return the cart to the cart corral because we don't want the other people around us to think we're assholes. Some of us do it just out of the pure charity of doing the right thing. But I mean, that's not, that's not everybody.
There
A
is
lot of
social
people
pressure.
do it because they don't want to be looked down upon shamefully. So I agree with your point about addiction, but I do think that shame does bear a place in a voluntary society that doesn't rely on a state or authority to come down on people. You need that social aspect to put like self-policing.
I don't think we need it at all.
It's interesting.
I think what I think we need is a secular version of the golden rule of the Bible. Do unto others as you would, whatever it is, prefer to do,
Have
they
them
do
do
unto
unto
you.
you.
Sure. Have them do it to you. Yeah, right. So, that's how I try to live.
Yeah.
That's a big deal for me. Especially in recent years, I've been very conscious, like the golden rule without the God stuff in it.
Mhm.
And I'm not serving God by doing this. I'm serving myself. This is my major move with it. It's a huge deal. Like I take the golden rule and make it individualist and self-serving.
Okay.
Self-interested, which is that
Yeah.
if I return the cart at my grocery store on a regular basis, it's gonna redound to my benefit, because the grocery store will be that much more orderly. The workers will be that much more happy, or less unhappy.
And let me make
But
a point
didn't we
real
just-
quick,
Oh,
because
sorry, go ahead.
Aldi's figured it out. Because
Okay.
Aldi,
Quarters.
have you ever been to an Aldi, Thad?
What's Aldi?
It's a grocery store.
Oh yeah,
But-
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't provide you bags. You have to pay for those. But one of the things that they've done is they have the corral filled with I say buggies because I'm from the South, with buggies. And in order to get one, you put a quarter into the thing to release it. In order to get your quarter back, you put that thing back in the corral.
Mm-hmm.
I never see a buggy in the parking lot of Aldi.
Incentives.
Ever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean,
But-
I would say that there is some utility sometimes within these social mores, but
Yes.
I would say that obviously I'm not the first and best person that's ever read the Bible, but when I have read it, when I've read what I believe Jesus was going for, it is within, there's an incentive structure. There is
But I don't think we need that. I don't think we need an economic incentives either. I think those are fine. I'm not opposed to them. In fact, do them. But what I'm describing is a non-economic incentive system, right?
Yeah.
Which is about basically convincing people of what I said about the golden rule. That if you follow it, your life will be better. Your life, you'll be happier. You'll have more pleasure. You'll have more friends. You'll have more good stuff. That is most certainly what I've discovered. Because I didn't really. I lived in New York City for 17 years, and you can't live. You have to be an asshole, right? And then I moved to Los Angeles, and it's like you're an asshole, but with a smiley face. Then finally, as I said about a few years ago, it just hit me. I was like, no, And I was also entering a tough, challenging part of my life, and I knew I would need all the help I could get to get through it. And also, by the way, having a business. This is a huge deal in business, man. If you don't live by the golden rule, it's just your bottom line is going to drop precipitously, right? You got to treat people really well.
Yeah.
But I've loved it ever since I very consciously started doing this. It's been a few years now. Thank God, because I just get so many benefits from it, most of which, or many of which, are not economic at all. They just make me feel good. They make me feel good. Me, only me, right? Individualist, selfish, that's what I'm saying. And once you get people to get that, and it's not difficult to understand, you're going to have your carts returned, and you're going to have people, being good citizens in ways that we think are good citizens.
Sure, but didn't we spend the very beginning of this podcast talking about, and I'm sorry, not pushback, just for clarity. Didn't we spend the first part of this podcast talking about people not being able to catch on to ideas, and there being sort of like the masses and them not really being like clued in and easy to sway and all of those things. So the idea that like everybody would pick up on this is, just like how do you mean that it would work that way? Because it seems like people do things even when they're to their detriment, knowing that it will make their world dirtier, knowing that it will not benefit them, they still do those things.
Well, I was talking about the ignorance about politics among Americans. Americans are ass ignorant on politics. This is objectively true. We know the studies. There have been surveys asking Americans where Washington, D.C. is, and they've flunked. I mean, that level of ignorance. Americans are super smart when it comes to making everyday life more pleasurable, fun, and comfortable.
Okay.
Right? We're the world champions of that. Hello, pop culture is our baby. Yeah, we do it all. Every way in which I've ever heard of, to make life more fun and pleasurable, it's here in America. It's available to us even, right? So yeah. There's so much, in other words, so that's the payoff. And there's a lot to pay. There's a lot people can get from just treating people well.
Do you disagree with Malice when he says that most people aren't even people? That that there are a lot of people who have no minds to them?
No. I don't. I mean, I don't know exactly what he means by that. I've heard him say, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
You mean like the NPC thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He has said stuff like that on my show, in fact. I don't know. What do you think he means?
Those are my favorite episodes, by the way.
So like
as
a gamer,
as
a gamer, it's just like if you're playing like a role-playing game and there's a guard you have to walk up to who gets you in the next door. He only has 3 things that he says because that's what his function is he stands there by the door. And he can only say those 3 things. He's a non-player character. So he's a character in the game, but he's not embodied by like a human. He's not
he's
animated, as they say.
So does he mean that people have no agency?
I think what he means...
No consciousness? Like, what are they lacking?
I think what he means is that beyond the purely reptilian mind, that it is layer upon layer of programming of what's the Pavlov's dog? Pavlov, is that the right name?
Yeah.
The bell ringing.
Yeah. I think what he's getting at, which I can't speak for him, but I think what I've gained from that is that there are a lot of people who don't think as much as they act because they've been predisposed and programmed to act in such a way.
Mm-hmm. Well, people get de-indoctrinated all the time too.
It's true.
All the time, probably as much as they get indoctrinated. I mean, how many people, for instance, have left the church that they were born into? For instance, how many people, have changed their political ideas radically in their lives? Hello, one right here. Right.
I was taught to love George W. Bush.
Yeah, all three of us have had revolutions.
Yeah.
Right. In our thinking. Okay. So if that happens, that's not unusual. It's not unusual. So, that tells me that Michael's a little bit pessimistic about human beings, and that fits with his general attitude about a lot of things. So,
it's interesting because I find him very optimistic. Like,
well, he does the white pill thing, but he makes me feel like shit by the end of it. So it's not like I'm not sure exactly how white pill it is. I mean, I just don't. He has a very. I mean, I think cynicism is a great thing in politics. Great, you've got to be cynical when it comes to politics. But Michael's very cynical. He's especially cynical, I think, about people too, not just politics. I mean, formal politics, we should be 100% cynical about it all the time. I mean, that is
Yeah.
what stops us from that is exactly what's standing between us and totalitarianism.
Mhm.
Totally.
Yeah.
Cynicism toward all formal politics, all of it. Even when Ron Paul's running for president, libertarians like be cynical about his old ass too, right?
To be fair, Michael Malice made fun of him when he had a stroke. So
yeah, no, that's what's great about Michael.
He made fun of Joe Biden.
That's
it was
what's
a great
great
moment.
about,
yeah,
and that's what's great about Michael. Yeah, but I think his cynicism extends to human beings a little too much. That's all. So, but as I said, I got the receipts, I got the evidence that it's often wrong. Like people totally change and become red pilling.
Yeah,
the whole concept of red pilling, right? There you go. It happens all the time.
And I think it's from the way I've listened to, because I've listened to a lot of Malice, I just enjoy the wit, man. But I think it's a much more constrained section of humanity that he's talking about rather than all of humanity. So I think that there's some wiggle in between where I think that you're viewing his view of people and where he actually does. So I think there's probably some middle ground there. There is one thing that I wanted to mention.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a house where my mother praised my father every day for his work ethic. And so I grew up and I worked and I worked and I tried my best to have this work ethic. And then I heard you talking to, I want to say, I can't tell you who it was, who you were talking to, but I remember you talking about the Protestant work. It was Tom Woods. You're talking about the Protestant work ethic. And when you were talking about how the Protestant work ethic is the idea that work is a good in and of itself, and that work is to be holy in some sense. And rather than what you would see as being more positive as work as a means to an end, I was like, holy shit, I haven't had this work ethic thing my whole life, because my entire life I've been like, the only reason that I work is to make my life better, is to be able to buy that stupid shit that I want, to be able to feed my children, which I have too many of them because my wife's not a prostitute. We just go for it. But beyond that, like I wanted to say thank you for talking about the Protestant work ethic, because before that point, I saw the concept of a work ethic as an unadulterated good. And then I realized, oh, I don't have it. And that's not bad.
Yeah.
And so I want to thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. Spread the gospel, brother. So, so from a libertarian economistic point of view, don't you agree? The Puritan work ethic is absolutely moronic. Working for something that gives you nothing of material value. Who on earth would do that? Right? That it only gives you spiritual value, and only if you're a believer. Right now, I can't believe I have to tell you this, but like, aren't there huge benefits to believing that you were doing a godly thing, Cam and Jessica? My Christian friends, my first Christian friends ever.
Thaddeus Russell just called me his friend. I'm a little verklempt.
We have to talk about this comment that you made in the chat. I don't even know what you're referring to, but are you techno agorist?
No,
that's
the guy running our banners and comments right now.
Oh, well then what the hell then let's talk about it. What is this? What was super? He made a super sexy comment.
I think it was when you were talking about how much better you looked after you were able to remove the alcohol from the picture.
Well, I didn't hear him. What did he say? I didn't hear.
I think he just said super sexy. I think it was just a one-off.
Really? Is that in the chat? I want evidence of it. Is that in the chat? I want to be able to show. I want to be able to look at it whenever I'm feeling down. You know, you do that. You take someone's flattery, and like whenever you're feeling, you're like, oh, you got it on your phone still.
Oh, absolutely.
Someone thought I was sexy at one point in my life.
One time I was on an episode with Monica Perez and Jessica, and both of them called me attractive, and I can live forever knowing that two women at the same time didn't find me ugly.
There you go.
There's the comment.
I wish I were you, Cam.
Super
Super
sexy.
There it is, right there.
Is that him? Is that
Yeah.
Techno Agorist?
That's
Yep.
yep.
Or that
That's
is-
Ryan. Yeah.
Ryan, I love you too. I can't decide. I don't know if you're sexy or not though, because I can't see you, but I'm sure you are. And if I let me also say this, Ryan, and to everyone watching around the world, if I were gay, I would totally fuck you. How about that?
I was talking in my private group chat
Is that
about how.
wait, is that okay on a Christian podcast?
Shit,
Dude.
yeah. I'm about to say that I think a trans woman would be the perfect mate for me because not only would she have a dick, but we could share clothes, and that would be awesome. So like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, or you could just like have a boyfriend who's a boy but like has feelings, you know.
But we couldn't share clothes.
And
that
and
way.
and taste. Oh right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're like
a
super,
tiny man.
I love how you go from being like Miss Christian like to being like super economistic and like practical, like nothing matters. Love doesn't matter to me. It's that I get cheaper clothes this way. Fuck love.
The sharing.
You'll do like all you care about is getting cheap clothes. I dig it. Like
And
more
the
than
dick.
love. More than love. Is that all that's all we are for you to you? Is like we provide you with material and dick?
I can literally hear my husband laughing in the other room right now.
Ah,
What's funny about this though that you don't know
I'm not
is that Jessica's saying this, but she's like 4'11". I don't think that there's a
Really?
trans woman out there that's
Are you?
4'11".
No.
Yeah,
I
no,
doubt
I'm
it.
4'11", and there's definitely some
Really?
short girls out there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I dated a woman who was 4'10" back in college.
I
Back in
get
co-
so
and
excited when I meet a person who's shorter than me. It's like the best.
Yeah. Well, for women, it's fine. There's no problem being short as a woman.
No,
But
they offered
I-
me hormones, or when I was born, they were going to inject me with hormones, and my dad's like, "Well, she's a girl. She should probably be okay if she's small."
So when I was 15 years old, I was 5'4".
Okay.
And I thought I was going to be short. And it was like a year of self-talk to prepare myself for a life as a short man.
Oh dear.
Because yeah, and then God, when I went on the dating apps a couple of years ago, I couldn't believe how important height is to women. Like off the charts important. Like off the chart. I knew it was important, but off the charts important. And but fortunately I grew 7 inches in one summer. So
Wow. Was it painful to grow that much?
I'm 6'1", so what's the difference? Whatever that is, yeah. Maybe a year. It might have been a year for the whole thing, for the whole group.
Well, I'm in the middle. I'm aggressively average at a sprightly 5'11". So
it hurts.
What's funny is like I did meet my wife on a dating app, but I never really had any issue because I'm right at the cusp of them being really horrible about it.
Wait, who's being horrible about what?
Women on apps about how short men are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like right there. I'm like on the cusp of being okay. So a lot of times I didn't have much.
I remember seeing this one chick on OkCupid or something who was, I think she said she was 5'0", and she was like, "I will not date anyone under 6'1". And I'm like, good luck out there, honey. I mean, what 6'1"? What else? So I'm barely adequate at 6'1". That's barely adequate. Like, wow, that's how intense it is out there.
Let me tell you, ladies, I'm 4'11", and my husband's pretty tall. He's 6 or 6'1". There are like logistical issues to being that different in size. Like, think this through.
help out the Short brothers. I appreciate that, Jessica.
Yeah,
exactly. Help them out, guys.
Short Kings.
This has been amazing. I unfortunately have to go.
Can I ask you one more question before we get off of here?
Totally.
Okay. So this is my last question is, who is the nerdiest historian to ever make it out of Columbia, and why is it Tom Woods?
Okay, now I got some more time. Good question, Cam. No, I would like to spend some time with my girlfriend. I was up until 6 a.m. writing a review for Reason magazine. And so I completely missed her for the last 24 hours. I haven't seen her. So, okay. I mean, so the question really is like, why is Tom such a fucking geek? Is that it?
Yeah, that's the background of the question. Yeah.
Well, first of all, Tom is 50, maybe 60% less geeky than he was when I first met him.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. Tom, especially in the last 2 years, year.
Do you think it's Malice's influence?
Dude's been going through changes, and I'm really proud of him. Really proud of him. He's done a lot. No, seriously. So he's done therapy.
Okay.
And he's started to talk about that on his show.
Okay.
That's a huge deal. He's cursing more and more and more. Not on his show.
I'm here for it. I love a Tom Woods curse.
He was on my show and he said shit like 3 times. Yeah.
I think maybe one of the funniest moments is he was on a live stream with Malice, and like he breaks in and he didn't know that Malice was live, and he goes, "You fucker," and it was.
There's another thing. Am I allowed to say this?
You're allowed to say whatever you want, man.
No. Tom might have asked me not to say.
Oh.
Do you guys listen to his show?
I do.
Basis?
I actually listened to your debate with Michael Reckenwald right before we came on. Yeah.
Yeah, I destroyed him in that one.
I was going to grill you about postmodernism, but I'm glad we went the way we went instead.
That was the most convincing, like, definite win I've ever had. Did you notice how I seduced the audience, by the way, by saying such nice things about everyone? Did you notice that?
You did, yeah. It's like,
okay. I seduced you with a promo video. Let's be real.
Do you know what?
Do
you know what Bob Murphy has to say about me?
No.
Probably not great things.
Oh, really?
I don't know. But I remember like the fallout from the time y'all debated or something.
Oh, we should have like had this entire show about that. Seriously,
can we do that? Can we do this again sometime? Would you be down?
Yeah. But you guys got to go listen to Bob Murphy's podcast about me.
Okay, I will.
He's done 2 separate, more than an hour long episodes in which he just talks about me.
Was the last one about like age of consent or something?
Yeah. Now, what do you think? What do you think Bob Murphy thinks about me?
Probably, I don't know. I've not listened to those episodes of his.
Okay. But this is not this is not an exaggeration. Okay, this is truly really what he says.
Okay.
I am an agent or a tool of
Satan?
Yes, sir. Yes, of Satan. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. That's a huge feather in your cap.
He says I am not the Antichrist, but I am an Antichrist.
Wow.
But he is totally 2 episodes of more than an hour each in which he lays out the argument that I am working for Satan. Yes.
Well, if we wanted to have a podcast with thought criminals, a tool of Satan would be definitely among the list.
But I'm going to leave you with this. He's right. Of course he's right. Obviously, right? You've read the book, Jessica?
I've read some of the book.
My book is not compatible with Christianity.
Oh, your book. No, I did finish your book. I'm sorry. I thought you meant the Bible.
Oh, that's right. That's even worse. Oh my God. You call yourself a Christian, but you haven't read the Bible. No problem.
Read the important books.
You're like one of those like Christian peasants from like, it's like, what do the priests say about it? Oh, I'll take your word for it. Okay.
No. I haven't been to a priest, sir. I've been to the book.
The Bible says I must give the priest a lot of money. That's so funny. And the priest
the difference between me and the 12th century peasant is that I can read, and then I have a Google and lots of other things.
Well, you're not using your literacy for godly reasons, are you?
No, I'm definitely not. Have you seen my Twitter feed? I am definitely not using my literacy for good.
You haven't read the motherfucking Bible. Anyway.
I need you to go on my Twitter. I know that you've just seen the things where I've tagged you, and then ask that question of yourself again. Can I say this on this Christian show?
Yeah.
Just my mouth.
People. I mean,
I know. I get it. You guys are like punk rock Christians or whatever, right? I get it. So that's
I'm
that.
so punk rock. Don't I look punk
He's
rock?
right. Satan, I gotta go because Satan's calling. He wants me to have dinner right now. So, all right.
Well, Thaddeus, thank you for coming on. You're always welcome back. I would love to talk about anything with you, because even if we clearly aren't going to agree on everything, like you make me think, and I
It's a
hope
treat.
beyond hope that anything that I say might make you think just for a second, a microsecond, the tiniest amount of time. That's all I want. But thank you for coming on, and
for me
you're
personally,
welcome.
thank you for your book. It was that book was a treat for me. It was specific to my interest.
Well, thanks, Satan, because I had nothing to do with it, actually. I'm just his paw. I'm just his tool. I am just his tool. I serve the dark one. I'm sorry. It's he wrote it. You guys both made me think this entire time.
Oh, awesome.
Broke new ground for me. Jessica, I told you said you were the first person to ever say that thing about my book, ever. That really important thing, which, I've had a few conversations about my book. So honestly, props to you guys, and I gotta go.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Hail Satan.
God bless.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you.
That wasn't funny.
Wow.
Oh, what a trip.
Thank you,
we had
guys.
a tool of Satan on.
Yeah. Well, if you're gonna have a thought criminal on,
the one
I didn't
who
even
dines
get
with
to
the
talk
Dark
to
Lord.
him about
Not so bad.
postmodern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I guess we should sign off for the plebes that are still watching. Thank you guys for watching. That definitely went in directions that we did not plan for. So it was a very natural, organic, free-form conversation, which is what I want. It's interesting to hear someone's thoughts, especially about Christianity, something that I'm very intimately familiar with. I didn't give a lot of pushback. I like to, put in some of my thoughts when there was a little bit of a space to say, well, no, I wouldn't agree with that. But I do think that it led to a very interesting.
Thanks for coming, Brian. That's my friend, Brian.
Very interesting conversation. Hi, Brian. It's a very family-friendly podcast. Christian.
Yeah.
I don't say the fuck word ever. So you can play this for your children. So with that, I guess we'll say goodbye. He's not here to say that I'm wrong about where to find him. So if you want to find Thaddeus Russell, you can go on Twitter at Thaddeus Russell. You can pick up his anti-Christian and Satan-filled book, A Renegade History of the United States. Probably anywhere books are sold. I know it's on Amazon. He also has his own online university called Renegade University, which you can find at renegadeuniversity.com. And, he has the Unregistered podcast where he spends his time talking to thought criminals, to very similar people as to who we're interested in speaking with. As for us, I did make 2 unique shirts based off of Thaddeus coming on the show, because I remember I told Jessica, hey, Thaddeus Russell is going to come on our show. And she was like, oh, I need to get a shirt that says hookers built this country. And I was like, I don't know if that's a thing that exists already, but I'm going to do that. So I made a shirt for the girls, for the ladies, or the guys, if you're into that kind of thing, with a picture of an old Maddie Silks, that says hookers built this country. And then I have one for the fellas, which with one of those horrible ape-like depictions of Irish people that says this country was built by scalawags. So I will link all of that in every description on our website, all of that. If you want to find me on Twitter, it's at Cam Harless. If you want to find the lovely Miss Jessica Green, it's at Soup Canarchist. We have a locals, which doesn't get a lot of play right now. So we need some people to come in and be willing to pay $2 to talk to us. That's going to be themadones.locals.com. We also are on YouTube. I know currently, you people know that. But anyone who's listening, if you'd rather see us talk to people and see the expressions and see how we do it, let me tell you, when we talked to Hotep Jesus, there were some awkward ass expressions that you don't need to miss.
That was a
you
tough
can find that.
conversation.
It was. You can find that one at youtube.com/themadOnes. We are also on Odyssey. So if you want to find us on a decentralized place where we can't get canceled, check us out on the Odyssey app. Unfortunately, I have my old handle on there. So it's This Is MLGA rather than The Mad Ones. So look for it there. And we have 4 other shows that we do originally for you people on the MLGA network. We've got... Techno Agris with Ryan, who Thaddeus Russell wants to fuck. We have, which is the exact opposite of what Hotep Jesus wanted to do to him. So we have Techno Agris. We have Voluntary Vixens with Jesse and Maddie. We have Thank You for Your Servers with Gary and Thaddeus Preston, which is a tech news podcast if you're into that sort of thing. And then and if she comes back, pray for our friend Kim. Her mom is still sick. When she comes back, hopefully we'll get new episodes of Lesbertarian. I think that Thaddeus Russell doesn't realize how much of an enigma we really are. But with that, I don't have a funny video this time. So
Sorry, guys.
Since I didn't get to ask Thaddeus about a white pill, do you have anything this week that you want to share with the people? Jessica?
Yeah, dude. I just got to talk to someone who, is like a writer that I really admire. That's like an amazing thing that happened just because we had the balls to ask. Yeah. Like, you can accomplish amazing things if you reach past what you think your limits are. And that is such a white pill to me. Like, where is the limit? Because it's certainly not where I thought it was.
We'll see. We'll see how far you're in my charm and my ability to make some videos to entice people. Also, shirts. I did send Thaddeus a shirt. The Scallywag. This country was built by Scallywags. But with that, dear audience, every last good-looking one of you, do your best to live your life the way you want to live it. Do it how you want to live it. And if anyone tells you any differently, tell them to go to hell. Peace.
What's the opposite? Oh, peace, guys.